Welcome everyone to Insights into the Weekly Haftarah. This week's Torah portion is Nitzavim. It is one of the shortest of the Torah portions. It's also one of the fullest. Personally, it's one of my favorite parshas because all of Jewish history, past, present, and future, are all recorded in Parshat Nitzavim. And it's always read the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah. The Haftarah, as we've been learning, there are 7 special Haftarahs from right after Tisha B'Av to right before Rosh Hashanah. All of them are called Haftarahs of consolation. They're all from the book of Isaiah. And this week's Haftarah is the final one, is the 7th Haftarah of consolation. And this coming Shabbat is the Shabbat before Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is next Monday evening. So this Haftarah comes from the 61st chapter of Isaiah, and it goes all the way into the 63rd. Begins on the 10th verse of the 61st chapter, and it goes to the 9th verse of the 63rd chapter. It is a relatively long Haftarah, and here Isaiah, among all of the prophets, when he wanted to wax poetic, there was no one like him. And here in particular, the poetic inspiration flowing through this whole Haftarah is just beautiful, amazing. So all we can do is just pick out the main theme and just some of the verses. The main theme is, again, consolation. Israel has been through a long exile. And Isaiah is prophesying for the future. He saw the exile coming. He understood, even from the parsha of Nitzavim. It makes it very, very clear how Jewish history would play itself out. But here, Isaiah is coming to console the people. And so, in just the most beautiful words and poetry, the theme is that when the exile ends, and it will end, the goodness that will be showered on Israel will be without bounds. And he goes into all kinds of different explanations of how all the riches of the world, all the people of the world, all the goodness of the world will return to Israel. Right in the beginning, he does what many of the prophets do, and that is he frames Israel's relationship with God as a groom and a bride. God, of course, is the groom. Israel is the bride. So I'm just going to read it in English. And it begins just with this great joy. I will rejoice intensely with Hashem. My soul shall exult with my God, for he has dressed me in the raiment of salvation. In a robe of righteousness has he cloaked me. Like a bridegroom who dons priestly glory, like a bride who bedecks herself in her jewelry. For as the earth brings forth her growth, and as a garden causes its sowings to grow, so shall my God, Hashem Elohim, cause righteousness and praise to grow in the face of all of the nations. This is just an example. It just continues with this flowery poetic, beautiful, visionary ideas of what will be in the Messianic era. Here we are in the 62nd chapter, verse 3 and 4. Then you shall be a crown of splendor in the hand of Hashem, and a royal headdress in the palm of your God. It shall no longer be said of you, forsaken one, and of your land shall no longer be called desolate place. For you shall be called, my desire is in her, and your land settled. So it's interesting that that in the future, we will be called Chetzi Ba, that God's pleasure is in her, meaning in the land and the people. My desire is in her. So this is just such a beautiful love relationship that Isaiah is quoting in God's name, that the Jewish people will be the object of God's desire. That's just a very, very beautiful thing. Then, in the 6th verse of the 67th chapter, it says, upon your walls, O Jerusalem, have I assigned guardians. All the day and all the night, continuously, they shall never be silent. In other words, God is going to protect us. And I would like to pray right now that God already starts to fulfill this so we can end this terrible war and feel God's protection again. But I shouldn't say that we're not. You know, when we attacked Iran, there was an expectation of possibly hundreds or thousands of people killed. That's why it took Israel like 25 years to make the decision that we had to attack Iran before they had nuclear weapons, because they will, God forbid, they would use them against us if they could. And one of the reasons that they didn't is because of these ballistic missiles. And if they shot hundreds at a time, no matter how good our defense system is, many would get through. And they're very destructive. These are not like little UAVs or drones. These are very, very destructive. And relatively speaking, God's protection during those 12 days was astounding. We were in our bomb shelters off and on for 12 days. But this time the booms were happening everywhere around us. But they were being shot down before they could actually do damage. So here, God is saying, though, in the Messianic era, God will protect you day and night. So what's interesting is that Reb Shlomo made up a very, very famous song to these words. Not exactly these words, but almost. And that is, Shomrim Hafkein L'Yircha Kol Hayom V'Kol Halayla. Shomrim Hafkein L'Yircha Kol Hayom V'Kol Halayla. Shomrim Hafkein L'Yircha Kol Hayom V'Kol Halayla. Lie, lie, nine, 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 I nine, 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 nine. So this is for those who were just in the previous class. I was talking about how so many of the words of the prophets and the words of the Psalms were turned into songs over millennium, So that was one of them, and it comes from this Haftarah. Then, in the beginning of the 63rd chapter, this is the basis of one of the songs that we sing on Shabbat. Some sing it at second meal, some sing it at third meal. And it actually comes in the middle of a longer Zmira, and it's called Uba. Here, I'll read it. Mize ba me'edom, chamutz bagadim, Batra ze hadur bilevusho so'eh berov kocho. Ani medaber b'tzedakah rav lahushia. Now here, this is speaking in God's name. Who is this that comes from Edom, sullied of garment from Botzra? It is the one who is majestic in his raiment, who is girded with his abundant strength. It is I who speak in righteousness, abundantly able to save. So this becomes the inspiration for this Zmira, Bevovo miadem, chamutz begadim. And it's very, very messianic. If you're wondering, where is this place Botzra? Well, Botzra still exists in Iraq. It's a major city in Iraq. And this is very, very prophetic about the final wars that, of course, we had the Gulf War and against Saddam Hussein. And then Iran, in a certain way, took over much of Iraq, including Botzra. Botzra is mostly a Shiite city. Iraq is split between Sunni, Shiite, and Kurd. It's really almost three states that were just kind of lumped together in a back room at the end of World War I. They just threw three different peoples together and they called it Iraq. But here it's very, very prophetic about the final wars. And it goes on. God, and here in this part of the Haftarah, God expresses the rage that will be visited upon the nations that oppressed Israel. And then it ends, the Haftarah ends with a very, very important verse. It says, B'chol tsaratam lo tsar, u'malach panav hoshiam, ahavato u'bechemlato hu ga'alam, v'yinat lem u'benas'em kol yemei olam. Here it says, God says, in all of their trouble, the prophet is saying, in all their troubles, he was troubled. And an angel from before him saved them. With his love and with his compassion, he redeemed them. He lifted them and bore them all the days of the world. So this verse is quoted all the time, that when we are in exile, the Shekhinah is also in exile. In other words, God has linked his, we're talking about God, we're using human terms, but God has linked his destiny with the destiny of the Jewish people. And therefore, we talk about what's called the exile of the Shekhinah. It's as if, because we are in exile, God is in exile. The Shekhinah is in exile. And that exile will not end until evil is wiped out and the Messianic era is inaugurated. So here, this idea, b'chol tzaratam lo tzar, in all of their troubles, God was troubled. But it's taken one step further, not just troubled, but in the previous Haftarah, Isaiah says in God's name, when you are in exile, I will create small sanctuaries for you, meaning my presence will be among you. It might appear that you're abandoned, but you are not abandoned. You will never be abandoned, because in your troubles, God is saying, I have taken it upon myself. And again, we're talking in human terms, but I'm exiling my own presence in this world. And so therefore, one of the prayers that we have is, God, save us for your sake, because as long as we are oppressed, your name is not recognized. Your presence isn't recognized. Your kingdom is not recognized. And so if not for us, do it for yourself. It's a very, very powerful type of prayer. It's called Aseh Lemancha. Do it for your sake. Im lo lemanenu, if not for our sake. Do it for your sake, if not for our sake. So this is the end of the 7 Haftorahs of consolation. May the Jewish people be consoled for everything that we've gone through. Right now, may there be consolation for all of the families who are still waiting to have either their live hostages returned, or at least the bodies of their beloved ones, so they can have a proper burial. For all of, almost 1,000 soldiers have died in the last 2 years. That means 1,000 mourning families and communities. Because when someone dies in Israel, it's really not like this. There are places, you could say, in America where you'll have the communal feeling when someone passes away. Everyone in that community, usually in a religious framework, but in many neighborhoods in America, people barely know who their neighbors are, other than, hi, how are you? I remember when we moved to Denver, and we were there for 7 years, we came from a community where everyone was in and out of each other's houses. The kids were in and out of just everything. And we were in the same neighborhood for 7 years. And there was really only 2 neighbors that we even were on the level of saying hello to, because no one even acknowledged our existence. And neither one of them really became our friends or anything, even though we actually tried. Our next door neighbor was Jewish, and we invited her many times to come for Shabbos. No, didn't want any part of it. Anyway, I'm just saying, if you have 1,000 soldiers who have died, you have 1,000 families who have mourned, and you have 1,000 communities that have felt their loss. So here we are finishing the last Haftarah of consolation. May all of Israel be consoled for all of these losses. And anyone in the world who needs consolation, they should also be graced with consolation. The whole world needs compassion. The whole world needs rectification. And may this coming Rosh Hashanah bring that to all of us.